Welcome. I'm Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, and so glad to have you all joining us today for another edition of WIN TV. Today is Friday, August the 27th, and this is our 75th edition of WIN TV. So thank you for joining us and for making this program what it is. Of course, we're here to serve you, bringing you news that matters. If you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit share so your friends can see the broadcast as well. And if you're watching on Periscope, be sure to follow us on Twitter and TikTok. And subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. No spaces, just Washington Informer TV. Well, I hope you've already had the opportunity to read the latest edition of the Washington Informer. And if you're all in for going paperless, the digital issue is online. This week, we're also featuring WI Bridge, our paper written by millennials, for millennials, and my son, Lafayette Barnes, who I'm proud to say is publisher and editor right now, as we are in search of a few good journalists. If you know some millennials out there, I offered to help, but he said, the stories have to be written by millennials, and I can't fake it. So anyway, if you know some young writers, please reach out to Lafayette at wibridgedc.com. Again, that's Lafayette at wibridgedc.com, and you can see that down in the notes. Even though this is Black Business Month, we have decided that we're going to continue to spotlight a Black business every week, because that's what we do. We highlight businesses that support our community, whether you're in DC, Prince George's County, Northern Virginia. If you're serving the local DMV, we want to hear from you. Or if you know someone who owns a business and you think they would be a good candidate for us to spotlight here on WIN TV, let us know. So you can send that information as soon as Sherry puts it up on the screen. But send it to us right now at news, at WashingtonInformer.com, because we want to support them and you. Today, we just are excited as we look at Black Business Month to spotlight a successful business woman and someone I would like to call a friend as well, and that's Barbara Lang. Many of you all know that name. Barbara's led the DC Chamber of Commerce as its president and CEO for several years. She is the managing principal and CEO of Lang Strategies, and she is also an author who will talk to us about her book. You may have heard also from Mark Tabron, president and CEO of Tabron Financial Services, on some of the local radio stations promoting his services to help protect and grow your money. He's joining us today as well. And tomorrow is the 58th anniversary of the March on Washington. And activist and organizer Tamika Mallory will be with us to talk about the Good Trouble rally at the Lincoln Memorial. Also, gosh, I can't wait. The 17th annual DC Jazz Fest will take place September 1st through the 5th. So if I'm going to be there. I just got to be there. But we also have DC Jazz Festival President and CEO Sonny Sumter here to talk about this fantastic event. We can get out now. We weren't able to do so much of that last year, but we can do it now. And so we're excited to have Sonny on to talk to us about the DC Jazz Festival. And briefly, we're going to have DC Council Member Trayon White and Reverend Darryl Moch, who will be with us to talk about the Community Day Health Fair, which we will also be at tomorrow over here in Ward 8. So wrapping up our program today, we will hear an interview from our contributing writer, Brenda Siler, who is talking to Sacha Jenkins about the upcoming Rick James documentary. Now, I got to take a point of personal privilege, Sherry. I hope you don't mind. But I am also very excited because if you read this week's issue of the Washington Informer, you'll see a story about a young man that I know very well who has launched, believe it or not, he's a music producer, a burgeoning artist, and now he's a candle maker. And that young man is also my son, Desmond Barnes, whose candles will be sold in about a week, beginning in a week. They're going to launch a community program at all of the Yes stores in Washington, D.C. So we'll hear some more from Desmond Barnes in probably next week and you'll be able to pick up his Heart of the City candles at Yes stores. And we're going to tell you how that whole thing evolved. Because like I said, we're celebrating Black Business Month, and we certainly do want to highlight all of our local businesses, even if they happen to live in your household. So we have a very full show, so stick with us. We have something for everyone. But before we move forward, I want to bring before we bring on our first guest, we want to bring on our broadcast reporter, Curtis Knowles. Curtis, take it away.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. Newly released census data shows that the Black population in Maryland is amongst the highest in the country. The 2020 data showed a 7% increase from the 2010 data by approximately 6.1 million. The white population is no longer the majority in Maryland, having decreased from 55 to 45%. Maryland's Black population currently is fifth highest in the nation, behind Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, and the nation's Tuesday capital saw the gathering of protesters seeking to push President Biden and Congress to passing key voting rights bills. The bills in question are the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, the For the People Act, and the Washington, D.C. Admissions Act. The demonstrations were in Lafayette Park and called for Biden to end the filibuster that's hindering all three bills. The rally involved many organizations, including the People for the American Way, the Democracy Initiative, and Black Voters Matter. Ben Jealous, the president of the People of the American Way, said voting rights at the state level are at risk, and we need the federal voting laws to correct those. President Biden has been pushing for employers in both the public and private sectors to set vaccine mandates for their employees. The move is being made in the wake of the Pfizer vaccine receiving full FDA approval. Biden addressed the nation from the White House, stating, "Leaders who have been waiting for the full FDA approval now have it. It only makes sense to require a vaccine to stop the spread of COVID-19." D.C. Public Schools Chancellor Furby and the Washington Teachers Union have reached an agreement on health standards for the upcoming school year. The agreement covers teachers' duties, vaccinations, HVAC installation, COVID testing and screenings, along with other aspects of the in-person teaching experience. The agreement also includes a stipulation protecting teachers against retaliation for reporting health concerns. Furby commented on the school's opening by highlighting Stanton Elementary's opening in Southeast, saying, "We know how to do school and how to do it well." This is Curtis Knowles with WIN TV News.
Hey, Curtis, thank you so very much for bringing us up to date on the news of when in the Washington Informer, what's going on in the DMV. But I am so happy now to bring Barbara Lang, publisher of a book that I was so happy to get a copy of and to read, called Madam President, Leadership Lessons from the Top of the Ladder. And who else better in the DC area to write a book than the person that's sitting in front of you, Barbara Lang. Barbara, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, Denise, thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on this show.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Thank you. We are, just spread the word. We're trying to get it out that we're doing this because we have great folks on like you that can share so much about, what you have done, what you've contributed to the DC area. I mean, you have had a career. You received numerous awards and accolades. Tell me what made you decide to sit down and record all of this?
Well, and there are a lot more experiences as well. I think my husband really kind of inspired me to do this book, because I started on it. It's something you start on, stop, you start and stop. And I started on it before he passed away 4.5 years ago. And one of the things he said to me is that you have had so many experiences, starting with Seaboard Coastline Railroad, my first job out of college, to IBM, to Fannie Mae, the DC Chamber, and now this consulting firm. And he said, you've had so many experiences that other people can learn from, particularly women and particularly people of color. So I'd have to say he was my inspiration and kind of gave me this push. And I talk about in the last chapter of the book, losing him as my partner and my friend and my lover and everything, and what an impact he had on my life and on my pushing me forward all the time.
Yeah, I got that. That was very clear in the book. It's about business, but it's also a great love story because you all met in college. You got married and didn't tell anybody.
That's true. We skipped a class in college and drove to Folkestone, Georgia, and got married and went back to class.
Yeah, that's an amazing, and stayed married for how many years was it?
54 years when he passed away. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's just an amazing story, and I was fortunate. I feel blessed to have met him and to have a couple of times, and to see how supportive he was of you and your daughter. And it just seemed like a real family man, and so I could see why you were able to go out and spread your wings and save the business community, because he was right there behind you, kind of.
Absolutely, he was. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, tell us about your path into business, and just what drove that entrepreneurial spirit that you had.
Well, after I had done corporate America, I did 25 years in IBM. I did a little over 10 years in Fannie Mae as an executive there, and then went to the DC Chamber of Commerce. And I was there for 12 plus years as their CEO. And after that, one of the things I always say, and I think I said it in the book a couple of times, you always need to know when to make a transition, when to leave, when is the right time to leave, because so many leaders stay too long and they outlive their usefulness. And so after, when I was thinking about leaving the chamber, I thought,
I want to interrupt you right
Sure.
there. Just 1 second, because you said you always know when to transition.
Sure.
A lot of people don't know.
No.
So what are the signals that you got, or that you gave yourself, acknowledged, that said it's time to do something different?
Well, I'm of the believer that you shouldn't stay in the same role more than 10 years. Okay. And so that's kind of my marker, because I think at that time you begin to not have the same enthusiasm about the job, and people get tired of you. So 10 years is kind of my marker. I stayed a little longer at the chamber because we were in the middle of a recession. This was right after 9/11, and things were pretty bad, and I felt I needed to help bring the organization back. The signal for me to leave Fannie Mae was when, and I've been there for 10 years, was when all the leadership that I was attached to, the chairman of the board, the president and COO, the vice chair, all were transitioning to other things. And I said, there ain't anybody up in those three jobs that know me and that hired me. Mm-hmm. And I said, let me find a path out of here that works for them and works for me before they decide that they want to go. I wanted to be able to chart my own path out. And so that was, you kind of look for those signs. And then I think the other thing is, when does your passion start to wane for the job? When are you no longer creative and innovative and enthusiastic and can mobilize your team? And if that starts to wane, it's time for you to look for something else that you can be extremely passionate about.
So, I mean, that sort of spells it out. And anybody that didn't understand that, we should play that back so they can hear it again, because transition is important. But, you've been successful in just about everything you've done. What is it that you think makes for a successful leader?
Well, I think, excuse me, you have to have a vision. You've got to have, or whatever it is you're going to do, where you want to go. You've got to be very tenacious. And because there are going to be so many obstacles in your way, particularly for people of color and for women. We will have more obstacles than your white counterparts. You have to be very determined. And I always suggest particularly to women and minorities, that you have a kitchen cabinet. And that is 3 or 4 people who are not in your organization, but that can guide you and give you good advice, and that you will listen to and tell you the good, bad, and the ugly. And you have to have very strong leadership skills. I also like to see leaders that have some compassion and some empathy, because you need to be able to identify with people. So those are just some of the things that I think you have to have when you are in a leadership position, and that I would counsel people aspiring to be good leaders to be.
You know, when we look at you as chair of, and president, I'm sorry, of the chamber, and I would think, I didn't take a survey, but I would think a lot of those businesses that you worked with and for were male-owned companies.
Sure.
Now you can correct me if that's wrong, but I mean, and so what is the difference, or is there a difference between male leadership and female leadership?
There is. And I think one of the big differences is you will see the compassion and empathy more with females than leaders than you will with male leaders. The other thing is that many times women leaders are in it to do something good, to make a difference. And male leaders, many are there for some of those same reasons, but more for the ego. And usually you don't have as much of the ego that you have to smooth over with women leaders. And therefore, I personally think that if we're in those positions, women leaders can be far more successful, quite frankly. I guess I'm biased, and I know you may agree with me on that. But I think that we can be, if you get us in the role, we get the right training, we get the right help along the way, that we can be far more successful.
So this is, you know, I hope if there are people out there that want to agree or disagree, that they'll go ahead and put something in the chat, because we certainly do. And there's one, you know, Carrie Hatch says Barbara is the ultimate and authentic role model of leadership. And
thank you, Carrie.
It's a wonderful thing. So going back to the book, you know, you said your husband actually inspired you, but now that it's been written and it's being circulated, are you going to go back and do, because I really wanted more, I have to say. I was like this. I mean, it's an easy read. It's only what, how many pages?
It's less than 100 pages.
Less than 100 pages. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I like real deep stories. I love the stories about your husband and your family and all that. But as a woman in business too, you know, I said, boy, Barbara, I know you had some difficult times, and maybe you can share one that you had at some point, you know, and how you overcame that as a woman business leader.
You know, well, there's one that's referenced in the book, and I think it's the piece, the chapter that's charting a new course. And I was at Fannie Mae at the time, and I was ready to make big, grand organizational changes for the team. I knew that I had one director that reported to me that was not all on board with this. But I thought that I could turn that around, and I was wrong. And I say that in the book. And what she did was undermine and sabotaged a lot of the organizational changes that I was trying to make. And she did that with still pretending that she was supporting the party line here. But she was going behind me and talking to other employees, other senior employees, and really undermining everything the rest of us were trying to do. And so the lesson that I learned for that is that you can't turn people around like that. Mm-hmm. And what I needed to do is to chart a way out of the organization for her. And ultimately that's what happened. But there were some bruises along the way, and a lot of things that I had to repair because of the damage that she did. And so that was a lesson for me. Yeah. And you know, and every chapter in the book, and I know you've read the book, is a story of something I experienced and what I did right and what I did wrong. And what at the end of the chapter, I talk about these are the lessons that I hope you will take away from this. Most leadership books, you know, a lot of rhetoric, a lot of you step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't want to write that kind of book because there's too many of those already. So I wanted to give people some real experiences of things that I went through, how I dealt with it, good, bad, and ugly. And what do you take away from that? And I just think it made for more interesting read, and people could identify with some of those experiences.
So now you probably had your company for a while, but Lang Strategies is what you're doing now, the CEO. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that. We're kind of running out of time, but tell us what Lang Strategies is, and also Will there be a sequel?
Maybe. Maybe. We'll see. Lang Strategies is a small consulting firm. We have 6 or 7 people, consultants, an office manager. And what we specialize is leadership development, but primarily around change management. You've got a new leader with a new vision, and you're trying to change the culture in a team, which is very difficult to do because people love to do things, even if the things are wrong. They want to do it the way they've always done things. So how do you change that culture, and how do you impact their behavior in the way they do their work? So we do a lot of work around that. We help organizations with strategies as well. And whenever I start out any engagement, I ask 3 questions. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And then how do you get there? And that's the plan. And so that's the kind of work that we do with organizations, mostly mid-size and large companies. And we did a lot of work, as an example, for the city of Detroit a couple of years ago. We were there for about 18 months. Doing some work because they were just coming out of bankruptcy. So that's the kind of thing that we do. It's really, and this is why COVID has impacted me so, because I think I do my best work engaging with people one-on-one and being right there with them. Right. And doing that on Zoom is a little bit more difficult.
Well, I'm glad we were able to do this and to have you on and to talk about the book. And I'm going to, there are a lot of lessons in here, and so I encourage everybody to pick up a copy. Can you order it?
On Amazon. It's on Amazon. Yes.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. That's great. So, Barbara, thank you so much for being with us. Wishing you much success, continued success. You, as we said earlier, you've retired 10 times, and you're still.
Yeah, I failed at retirement.
Exaggerated, but yes, and we're glad that you have. Just keep on giving, and we look forward to finding ways to support you. All right.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Speaking of business, I love talking to her. I could talk to her all day. But speaking of business, another person that we really do need to talk to as well is someone who can help us in the financial services area, talk about how we can grow our money. So I'm happy to bring on board Mark Tabron of Tabron and Associates. Mark, welcome to the show.
Denise, thanks for having me on the show.
I couldn't think of a better time since the year is going fast. We're going to be up on December pretty soon, and folks are going to be scrambling, trying to figure out, what to do with their taxes,
right,
their donations, with all of that. Tell me how you can help people as they make financial decisions.
Okay. But Denise, what we do is we help people with retirement strategies. We help people of all ages, but our primary focus are people who are 5 to 10 years away from retirement or already retired. So we help them to put together strategies so that they can stay retired, so they don't have to go back to work. We try to help put together strategies so they can retire on time. A lot of people have a time limit as when they want to retire. I asked a question in a seminar I did last night. Does anybody here have a date for retirement? All the hands went up. One lady said, yes, my date is coming up in about a month, and she had the hours down to the exact minute. So anyway, we help people with those strategies so that they can retire on time. I don't know if you remember the last recession we had when the housing bubble burst, the Great Recession, the worst recession in history. A lot of folks couldn't retire because they had lost so much money in the market, they had to continue to work for another 5, 6, 7 years. And I read an article that said over 30% of the people that had retired had to go back to work. So, you had folks 75, 80, even older working in CVS, McDonald's, and Walmart because they lost so much money in the market, they couldn't pay their bills. They had to go back to work. So we try to put together strategies for people so that they can stay retired, they can have a comfortable retirement, and they can be confident in their retirement.
Do you think that it's late to start with people about 5 years before retirement? I mean, as one who's, been kind of self-employed most of my life, and now there's so many young entrepreneurs out there, young folks who really aren't even thinking about retirement. They may not have retirement accounts? I mean, should we be starting earlier, or what is your message?
Oh yeah, you should start earlier.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you should start as soon as possible, but we work with people who are almost ready to retire.
I got you. Okay.
There's a difference between what a person would be doing at 30 years old and what a person will do at 60 years old. So a 30-year-old should be doing something different from a 60-year-old should be doing something different from a 30-year-old. Hopefully you've done a lot of the preparation. So we help you to implement the strategy to make sure that you have a clear picture of what it is you want to do when you retire. We want to make sure that you understand all the things that are about to happen, because a lot of people look at it like getting ready to start a new life. And so I think you should start working on retirement as soon as possible, as early as possible. But we actually work with folks that are about to implement their retirement strategy, and we want to make sure they have one. A lot of people don't really have a strategy. A lot of people haven't really sat down and thought it through. A lot of people don't know exactly how much money they're going to need. Sometimes they don't know exactly what their expenses are, what their expenses are going to be when they retire. So these are very important issues. So a lot of times people come to us a month before retirement, sometimes a week before retirement. Yeah. So we think it's crucial to start as soon as possible, but that's our focus area. But we'll work with anybody at any age.
Yeah, we're going to want to talk some more about this. It's just now our time is kind of getting short. Sure. I know that you're out there, you're on shows, and we want to get you back on to when we want some hints about that. And Sherry put something up a minute ago. It went fast and see. Okay, so they can find you on Praise 104.1 on Saturday mornings at 6:30 and WOL. On Saturdays at 12 and Mondays at 12:30. This is fantastic. So we want to get you back on, because this is important, I think, for many of us.
I'd love to come back on.
The boomers are booming right now. And so
that's right. About 10,000 people retiring, every single day. It is amazing. And so, we want to help people to protect and grow their money so they can have an income that they can never outlive. And that's one of the main things we do. We show people how, because we think the core of a good retirement strategy is a good income strategy.
I hate to cut you off, but our next guest has got to leave too. So we want to move on. So
thanks for having me
on. Thank you so much for being with us, okay?
All right. Thank you.
All right, talk to you soon. I told you we have a packed show today, and we're really glad because people just took time out from their schedules and we want to get them in. And so much is happening this weekend. We're happy to have Tamika Mallory with us from Win TV. Not from Win TV, but here on Win TV, as we talk about. I'm making you a part of my team, Tamika. How are you?
I'm good, and yourself? It looks like, do you see me and hear me?
Yeah, I see you and hear you.
How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I saw you on television this morning on our local CBS affiliate. And so I'm glad everybody's getting the word out about the march tomorrow. And I know you had Mark Thompson on with you, who you allowed to tell the history, but now it's just you're solo. So tell us, what are we organizing for tomorrow?
Yeah, don't tell Mark I said it, but I respect my elders, right?
I hear you. And when I thought about it, I'm like, oh God, Mark is younger than I. Anyway, that's all right.
No. So tomorrow, we are hosting a rally at the Lincoln Memorial. I know we use the word march interchangeably, but because of the fact that there are multiple things happening in DC tomorrow, including a march, it's important to note to folks that ours is a rally that will be at the Lincoln Memorial. Obviously, we are always in the spirit of commemorating 58 years ago, where Dr. King and A. Philip Randolph and Congressman John Lewis and Dr. Dorothy Irene Height and others were there in Washington calling for jobs and justice. And so we are always uplifting, celebrating, and remembering the courageousness of those folks who came before us. But we're dealing with the state of emergency right now. So while we are going to Washington again to remember, we must also go to Washington to raise our voices about a number of issues that are in front of us in this moment. We are still fighting for very, very basic rights. And I've been telling folks, and tomorrow I intend to talk about it from the Lincoln Memorial. I personally don't vote for Republicans. I don't vote for Republicans. I don't donate to their campaigns. I support the Democratic Party. And so I'm not interested in hearing all of the excuses for why things are not happening, because we were asked to go out and work to get people to go to the polls, in which we all know that we came very close to losing the presidential race. But then when we were on our way home, tired from being out there, turning people out and dealing with folks who feel really disenfranchised, who really do not feel this system is representing them properly. And they have every right to feel that way, especially when talking to young Black men across this country on street corners and nightclubs. And we did that work. But then they said, well, we got to go back to Georgia. We need to get these 2 Senate seats. And once we secure these 2 seats, then we will have the majority in the Congress to be able to pass bills. And we're going to deal with police accountability. We're going to look at HR 40. We're going to deal with all of these things. We're going to deal with voting rights. Now we have all the things. We did our job. The organizers did our jobs. The people of Georgia are the real MVPs. They went to the polls. Young people turned out. Black women did what they did, and Black men stepped up and went to the polls and did what we had to do to flip these seats and to make sure that we secured them. And still, we have no George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We've got a voting rights bill that has passed basically different iterations of it 3 times in the House and has been unable to get through the Senate. This is problematic, and it is frustrating. And I'll be honest with you, when it comes time for the midterm elections, I have absolutely nothing to go back to the same communities and offer them as a reason why they should show up at the polls again. So we're in a real dangerous situation, and that's why we'll be at the Lincoln Memorial tomorrow.
Yeah, I would just say, since it's this 58th anniversary really is a landmark in ways that every year that the anniversary of the marches happened, and in some cases there have been marches, and others, the year went by and there weren't. But it always is a reminder of the work that we will always have to do, in order to keep our issues out there. We can't stop this. And so, I understand the frustration and all that, and I'm glad that's why you're doing it, because we got to keep people fired up, right?
Got to keep people engaged. We have to give people hope. They've got to know that folks are out there fighting and that there's a place to go to raise your voice, to uplift your issues, and to meet other like-minded individuals who can go back to your local communities and do the work. I've been telling folks that going to Washington, D.C. is one part of a big pie, a big soup, if you will, that it takes to really heal the body. And in that soup, you've got to run for office. You've got to have economic empowerment. You certainly have to educate your young people. There's so much that we have to do. We have to take care of our health, our mental health, our physical health. And rallying in Washington is giving folks the opportunity to come together, to identify the issues and to identify the points that we need to press. But then you have to go back to your local communities, and the work must continue there. When we think about the fact that gun violence is on the rise across this country, we can't ignore it. We can't make it a dirty little secret in our communities, because I believe that when young people and others in our communities are killing one another, it is a mirror that is being placed in front of us because they are crying out for help. And in the infrastructure bill, there's $5.3 billion that is specifically assigned to deal with gun violence awareness and prevention, with a specific focus on urban violence. But yet again, we've been unable to get that bill through the Senate. That's a problem. And I want to see, I resent much about Donald Trump and the way that he presided over this country. This morning, as I was riding down to DC, we were talking about the Delta variant and all the issues with people who don't want to get in our community, who don't want to get the vaccine, and people, just all the trouble and challenges that we know about. And we were talking about how all of this started with poor leadership, because we had a president who did not take it seriously. And even even if he did take it seriously, he decided to keep the American people in the dark because he was running for office and because he's a narcissist. And so I resent much about him. But the one thing I appreciated about Donald Trump is the idea that what he said, he didn't care who liked it or didn't like it. And he forced people to respect the fact that he's president, especially in his party. And they fell in line. Now, I'm not looking for our party to be the same in terms of being immoral, but certainly the courageousness and the boldness of saying that we're going to get things done. And it does not matter who doesn't like us. We're not trying to reach across the aisle and talk to people who've never been with us. They have continuously been an obstacle to us getting justice. And yet we are talking about stalling so that we can work with these individuals. It didn't work before. It's not going to work now. And in the midst of this, our people are literally dying, and we cannot continue to fumble the ball and allow what is happening here to continue. So that's again why we're organizing. We're asking folks to meet us at 10 a.m. at the Lincoln Memorial tomorrow, especially if you want to be with grassroots organizers who are out here doing the work every single day.
Right. Well, I'm not going to hold you because I know you said you were en route to DC. Yes, I want you to get here safely, and we're going to try to blow back the rain and all that they're talking about coming today. But I think you've got a good day headed tomorrow. Be safe, continue to work. And I know a lot of folks are going to be out there, particularly DC statehood folks. The Washington Forum will be out there covering the event as well. So, thank you, Tamika, for all you've done. You're adding some years onto the struggle as well. It's been a while. So thank you so much for leading this effort.
Thank you, Denise. I appreciate that. And I'm glad that you mentioned DC statehood, because obviously that is one of the most important issues on our agenda as we go to DC tomorrow.
Wonderful. Folks are like, don't forget us.
Don't forget us. That's a really, really important point. When we talk about voting rights, voter suppression is right here happening in Washington, D.C.
That's right. Exactly. All right. Be safe, travel safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. So yeah, if you don't have plans, there's a lot going on in the city tomorrow. We'll be there covering that, but we're also going to be, and I want to thank Tamika for being with us because, like I said, she's been involved in this movement. She started, as many of us did. You start as young people, and you don't step away. The fight gets harder, and it gets deeper, and it gets longer, and but that's what it's all about. We don't have victories and then we sit down and say, okay, job well done, and then we can kick up our heels. It's constant, and Tamika's been there for quite some time. So speaking of constant, tomorrow also we're going to have a health event here in Ward 8. Hopefully Councilmember White I'm sorry. I'm jumping so ahead of Sunny Sumter because this is the fun thing that I want to talk about. But even jazz in DC and the struggle to have a DC jazz concert, has a struggle with that Sunny's gone through. But we're gonna actually enjoy that weekend. Are we waiting for something, or is Sunny going to join us? Okay, there she is. I want you to talk about the Jazz Festival, not me, Sunny. So how's it going?
It's going amazing. The advancing and planning for this big celebration of jazz in DC. We have such a stellar team, so it's going well. I'm so excited.
I am too. Just, if you can kind of give us the rundown of what's going to happen and who's going to be there and how folks can get involved or come out and enjoy.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me on the show. Jazz Fest starts September 1st through the 5th. We have over 20 concerts citywide that we'll be celebrating, culminating at the Wharf on September 4th and 5th, on Saturday, September 4th, and Sunday, September 5th. We've got the finest of our DC talent. We have some great jazz talent here in DC. So we've got Marshall Keys and Paul Carr bringing their Carr Keys Ensemble. Elijah Balbet's group is coming. The String Queens is coming with this grand evening of strings featuring Regina Carter. That will be amazing. That's on a Saturday. We're doing amazing Meet the Artist panels where artists will talk about their lives, and our guests can come and see this for free. You just have to register by going to dcjazzfest.org and click on the event that you want to do. And come for on the wharf. It's actually standing for free. If you like seated or VIP tickets, there is a charge for that. And those tickets are probably going to sell out by Monday.
Wow.
So we really need people to go to the website now. And if you want a seat or if you want the VIP experience, you want to go ahead and take advantage of that this weekend. We also have events at Mr. Henry's and at Krieger Museum, at the Phillips Collection. It really is such an opportunity for us to get outdoors after so much time spending indoors, right? So we want everybody to come out. There's actually either a free event, or we want you to, in the case of Mr. Henry's, order some food or a drink. And then in some other cases, there is some ticketed events at a moderately priced price point.
We've been doing this jazz festival now. How long, Sonny?
I have been at Jazz Fest since 2008, and the festival, we're celebrating our 17th year. Wow. Charlie Fishman, our founder, and his beautiful wife, Stephanie Peters, started it on a paper napkin in Adams Morgan in 2004. And here we are in 2021, celebrating in such a grand way.
I know jazz enthusiasts know jazz in DC, but what would you tell us about the jazz scene in DC and what makes it so special?
I think what makes it special, it starts with the education of jazz, which we have a robust jazz education program. So if you go to places like Duke Ellington School of the Arts or David Yarbrough's program, which is the Washington Jazz Arts Institute, Paul Carr has a program, Jazz Academy, out in Maryland. It really starts with jazz education. So many of our young artists that decide to answer the call and become artists. And we have a robust, active body of jazz artists that tour around the world with some of the finest. Francis Corcoran Ho playing with Kenny Garrett as one of many. And then besides that, this is really a hub where you can come in to DC and hear a great jazz jam going on, as well as jazz concerts that are happening every single week. And so DC has really become one of the jazz towns of the world when it comes to hearing fine jazz music. The Jazz Festival itself makes sure that we do honor the great tradition of featuring those great jazz artists as part of our lineup.
I know that there are quite a few, and they're not all coming to mind for me right now, but, going back to Duke Ellington and I've read articles and stories about other great jazz artists who've come out of Washington, but can you name a few?
Well, you just said the big one, Duke Ellington. Shirley Horn, who is one of the finest throughout the history of jazz in the world, reside, as you know, she lived on Taylor Street. Dr. Billy Taylor grew up here, went to Dunbar. Sonny Stitt, Freddie Hubbard, just so many great artists that came out of DC. And, we like to say that Marvin Gaye is the great, he's beyond category, as Duke Ellington says, but he did a lot of jazz music growing up. So we'll claim him.
That's right. Definitely. So, people say that DC doesn't, have its own music or its own whatever. We know we've got go-go. Even Chuck Brown, we could put him in that category to a certain extent, right?
I was just about to add him as the final one because some of the great jazz standards have become popular because he added a go-go beat to it. Misty being one of them. Don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing.
That's right.
All great jazz tunes.
Yeah. Well, this sounds like it's going to be great again this year. And so I'm encouraging everyone to, like you said, go ahead and order tickets to the free events, the paid events. Sherry, we can put that back up on the screen again about where people can go and order tickets. We want to make sure that they do that, dcjazzfest.org. Anything else we need to know, Sonny?
Sunday night, we're closing out with D Nice doing a dance party outdoors at the Wharf. So you definitely want to come and check that out as well. I wanted to mention a couple more artists. We've got John Schofield, Lakeisha Benjamin, Orrin Evans, the DC Jazz Pre-Finals competition. So much great music. Every part of the jazz umbrella will be featured. So please do come out.
And lastly, I guess for some of our younger jazz artists, I know you probably mentioned them, they kind of maybe gone over my head, but who are some of, we're growing jazz musicians in DC as well, thanks to Duke Ellington and other schools that you've mentioned, but are some up and coming artists that we might be able to see as well?
Well, we've got Elijah Babed, who won the Jazz Prix which is an international band competition. He's bringing his group, and everybody in DC loves him. So you definitely want to come check him out. The String Queens. These ladies are young, up and coming artists, but certainly, they're teachers at KIP DC actually. But they've got a band called the String Queens, and they've been hitting the world by storm. They just did Wimbledon. They just did a video for Wimbledon. So we love them, and we call DC. We claim them well, and you want to come out and hear them as well.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I want to thank you so much for sharing that with us. I look forward to seeing you next weekend.
Look forward to seeing you next weekend.
And it's going to be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Boy, that's going to be fun. That's really going to be fun. And I hope folks will go out and enjoy that. And we're jumping around a lot because we talked about this weekend and now next weekend. And we're going to jump back to this weekend with our council member, Trayon White and Reverend Moch. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly.
Moch.
Yeah, Moch. Thank you. How are you, Reverend Moch? And
I am well.
Reverend White. How are both of you all?
I'm well.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. I know time is short, council member. I know I've heard you got a lot on your plate the next couple of days. I know you're going to be at all the marches and also over here, and then just dealing with local issues. But there's a health fair that you all are putting together that will take place on Saturday. Can you give us some details?
Sure. Councilmember White is one of our longtime supporters for this event over the last few years. And of course, we didn't get to do it last year because of COVID, but we are back again. And we're going to be at Temple of Praise on Southern Avenue in Southeast DC. We will be gathering lots and lots of community groups and organizations. It's sponsored by the Places of Worship Advisory Board, which is an advisory board to the DC to DC Health. And over the years, we've evolved from advising a part of DC Health, which was HOSTA, to advising all of DC Health in regards to whole person health issues. And so we do the Community Day and Health Fair as an opportunity to bridge the relationships between government and government agencies like the Department of Health and faith communities, as well as our business communities and partners, so that it's not just about faith institutions being engaged, but it's about how do we engage the entire community. If we're trying to improve community health outcomes as a whole, then all of these places have to be involved. So our Community Day is one of those opportunities where everyone gets to come together. We are going to be outside. I heard your earlier guest talking about finally being able to do things outside. We are still going to be socially distancing according to CDC guidelines and DC regular requirements. But we're going to have a great opportunity. We'll have free food. We're having giveaways of fresh fruits and vegetables. We'll have hot lunch prepared for people, fresh on the spot. We have vendors that are giving away all kinds of things. DC Water will be with us. And the Washington Informer is one of our sponsors and partners this year. And so we are more than thrilled to really get on your radar and be able to develop a relationship with you. The advisory board has existed since 2008 in its latest form. It's had various other forms before that, but in this case, we've been here since 2008 doing community conferences and workshops and programmings, and this Community Day is a big one that we love doing.
Well, we have a short time because we had to carve out some time for the council member. So I want to make sure that he gets a chance to weigh in as well, because, we keep him constantly in our prayers because he's dealing with so many issues over here in our community. And, if there's one besides education, criminal justice, or health. And Councilmember White, where would you put the health in the lineup of what you think is really critical for your constituents?
I put it as number one, because if we're not healthy or alive, everything else is irrelevant, right? And I think that I've been at these events with the DC Health and Places of Worship Advisory Board for 3 years now. And I think that is needed because the health disparity we're facing in this region, particularly among Black people, is disheartening. And we have to do any and everything to partner. And I'm proud of the faith community for stepping up and bringing together all these partners like Martha's Table, Urban Greens, DC Water, Far Southeast, Heavenly Works, Imani Temple. It's all these partners together to address some of the issues we face every day. And if we're not alive, then the conversation is mute.
On as it relates to health, what do you think is I know mental health, you probably put it number one. But other than that, what do you think is it nutrition? What do you think is one of the biggest issues that you would love to see us tackle in this community as it relates to health?
Well, I think that we have some critical underlying mental health issues that's unaddressed from the trauma that we see every day, and even in the community, we're seeing a new trauma perpetuated amongst our youth. Just did a visual of Kimon last night, who was 15, that was killed last week at school, and ongoing. I think that the true side is manifesting from the outside and in our body, partly because we health and nutrition officers, which we're addressing by building 2 new grocery stores in Ward 8, and I know a new one is coming to Ward 7. But health information, right? What are we eating? How do we eat? How do we maintain good diet? What do we do to address our stress levels, our depression levels, so we can be whole, healthy human beings to maximize our potential? And so some of those things will be addressed in our community tomorrow at the Temple of Praise.
Fantastic. You broke up a little, but I think we got the gist of what you were saying. And, Reverend Moch, I think you are actually put it out a lot out there in the beginning. Quick question. Will there be any COVID testing or COVID related activities as well?
Yes, we are planning to have COVID testing available, as well as HIV testing and Hep C testing or screenings as well. There will be there's a whole medical unit that's coming to work with women and young children. So yeah, we're trying to cover the gamut of that. The council member is right about this. Years ago, we put out a statement that violence was a public health issue. And in order to sort of highlight that, it's just like any other virus or disease. When a gun, killing someone has reverberations across many communities and many families and and so, yeah, we're looking to make sure that we touch all of the different health areas that people have, because we want to give them access and information. That's the biggest key, is that people don't always know they have access. They don't know what's there, so they're not getting access to good health care.
Right. So before we go, go ahead, Councilman White.
I just had to switch devices so you can hear me. I apologize, you guys.
Oh, no problem. No problem. I know, like I said, time is short. Give us the details again about where this will take place and the time. And also, do people need to register, or can they just come?
So yes, the event's going to take place at Temple of Praise on Southern Avenue in Southeast DC, and people can register. We would encourage you to register for the event, and I believe that someone's going to put that on the screen for folks. And if so not, you can come.
Register? I'm sorry, Reverend Moch. Where do they register? Is there?
You can actually go to on DC Health's website, DCHealth.gov and /POAB, POWAB, and you should be able to find the link there. There's also a link that people can find as well. And so if you don't register in advance, it's okay, because we are prepared for you. So come on out, bring your family, bring your friends. We have school supplies for kids. We have lots of things going on. So we would love for you to register if you can, just so that we can be prepared as we march into the day tomorrow morning. But it's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Temple of Praise on Southern Avenue in Southeast Washington, D.C.
Wonderful. And now Southern Avenue goes a long way.
7 Avenue.
Say that again.
700 Southern Avenue.
700 Southern Avenue. Fantastic. Councilmember White, you deserve applause as well for putting together a fantastic back to school program last week. Last Saturday, I understand you all had, again, like this event, had lots of partners out there. You're giving haircuts and braiding and all kinds of stuff for the kids going back to school. What's been your message to kids going back to school with parents and children?
Well, as you can imagine, there's been a lot of anxiety about how we roll out back to school, trying to make sure, one, our children feel safe and have the safety precautions in place, but also that they are able to catch up. Our students experience a lot of learning loss in the last year and a half, and so we're trying to make sure we're doing everything to relieve the stress off of parents, like book bags and haircuts and hairdos. It's not a big thing, but that's a financial burden. That may be the $50 or $70 hairdo that's taken off the mother's plate, or the parent or the father's plate, to help relieve some of that stress going back to the schools. And so we have mental health therapists there. We had tennis shoes there, a lot of different things just to kind of stand in the gap, to release some of the stress and pressures off the families as we press to get our babies and our young people a quality education.
Well, I commend both of you, and especially you, council member, for understanding and hearing what the needs of the community are, and making sure that those needs are being addressed in some shape, form, or fashion, particularly now that the weather is nice and people can come out to events like this and get the critical information that they need. So I want to thank you all for taking time to be with us today. As you know, the show's always open, so come share anytime, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow and hope for a successful event.
Well, Denise, thank you for the work you're doing with the Washington Informer and making this forum possible. Without you all doing the work, we'd have a hard time getting to the community. So you are a key component in everything that we do. Thank you for all your years of work.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you, Reverend Moch. See you tomorrow.
All right.
All right. Okie doke. So we're winding it on down, and we're almost done. But this is a part of the program I'm looking forward to, because, like you, I can sit back and watch and hear our interview with our reporter, Brenda Siler, who is interviewing Sacha Jenkins, who has produced a documentary on Rick James. And following that, you'll see Bridge TV, as well as what's going on DC with the media prints. So, and sounds of the DMV. So stay tuned. I'm going to check out, and I will see you all next week this time. Have a great weekend, and thank you for joining us. But don't go away.
I'm Brenda Siler, contributing writer at the Washington Informer newspaper. Welcome to our interview with Sacha Jenkins. He is the director and one of the executive producers of a brand new documentary about Rick James that will premiere on Friday, September the 3rd on Showtime. The name of the documentary is Bitchin', the Sound and Fury of Rick James. We will learn how he created his style of music that he called funk punk, and we'll hear from members of the Stone City Band and other artists who just admired him over the years. So let's take a listen to what Sacha Jenkins has to say about Rick James.
This isn't the Wizard of Oz. There are Black people here, and we make music. I mean, don't we exist?
Blacks have been stigmatized into this choreographed I want to write about whatever and be able to wear whatever. I smoke marijuana, I can write about it. If I don't like Richard Nixon, I can call him an asshole. I want to be nasty, and I want to be raw.
This man was a genius.
Electric.
He had an attitude.
The father.
Draft dodger. Sexual abuse.
Crazy.
It gets no funkier than Rick James.
Rick's music anchored itself to the evolution of Black history in America. They put words to it.
His style was just hard.
This wasn't just a performance. We now know this was actually who he was.
He was accused of sexual assault. That was the demon. That was drug-possessed James Johnson.
I was very vocal because I'm very vocal about injustice. I've never been one to bite my tongue, and I never will. If I see something funky that's going on, I'm gonna speak on it.
Never mind who you thought I was. I'm Rick James, bitch.
Sacha, welcome. We're so happy to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Let's just get right into it in terms of why Rick James? Why is he the subject of this? Basically, this is like your fourth documentary that you've done.
Maybe fifth. But, Rick James is such a contemporary man. For someone who's not here, his musical innovations were, way ahead of its time, but also culturally, he was someone who could move amongst lots of different people. And so his cultural vocabulary was very high. And I think that's what makes him contemporary today, because young Black folks today, their world is, via the internet and travel, their worlds are way more broad than they were in the past. And so the music and art that we are receiving from young folks of color has a broad range of influences in the way that Rick James' art also had a broad range of influences. So it feels like his story is very contemporary.
People may be surprised at during a time that he was in Canada, he hooked up with Neil Young, who is someone that is still producing. He met Joni Mitchell, and he really was moving and grooving, as I like to say, between people that were in that 70s rock era, in addition to kind of a little bit of a folk music kind of thing. And if people listen to Rick James, they should be able to hear some of those influences of some of those early connections that he was able to make.
Yeah, that's what's amazing about Rick James. I mean, he didn't really make it till he was in his 30s. Your average artist today, you start out at 17. If you don't make it by 22, you're going to go work at Whole Foods or go to school or something. And so all of those years of travel and experience and cross-pollinating culturally with a broad range of people, when he finally gets to his, the song that really broke wide for him, which is called You and I mean, you hear so many different sounds and influences in that song. And it's all those influences that made him such a unique, standalone, standout artist. He was first on Motown in a group called the Minor Birds, which was sort of a folk rock band that Neil Young was in. And then later, he did a brief stint as a songwriter for Motown. And then later, he would get his record deal. And he wound up sort of changing the way Motown worked, because before it was like a group of writers and producers would get together and kind of dictate your style and sound. And Rick James was someone who took all of that in-house and did it himself. And I don't think he set out to change Motown. I don't think he cared. I think he set out to get his music out there. And in the process of seeing who he was as an artist, Berry Gordy said, hey, this guy has something that we can use and might help us. But I don't think he set out to change or save Motown. It just worked out that way.
So when Rick came back to his chart-topping years at Motown, he was known for these amazing stage shows. The crowds went wild. He was just out there. And it was what a heyday. And he was able to bring some of his friends from Buffalo to be a part of the Stone City Band.
Yeah, I mean, he had traveled the world. He had worked with all kinds of musicians, but he realized that he needed to go home to connect with who he was and what inspired and influenced him. And he knew that there are great musicians back home in Buffalo, which is a city that people know very little about. And he helped to put, musically put Buffalo on the map with his music and with the musicians that he worked with from there. We wanted to tell a balanced story, leaning into something called journalism, which people have seemingly lost faith in or have forgotten about. But we wanted to give people the full picture of who he was and give people an understanding of, he wasn't perfect, certainly. He had done some horrible things, allegedly, and some things he was convicted of. But let's look at the fact that he was sexually abused. Let's look at the fact that, he was beaten at a young age. And, he's coming from a time when therapy and PTSD and trauma and all these things that we don't talk about as a community, we definitely didn't talk about back then. Things are thankfully changing. But, he had some trauma and some abuse. And maybe that informs some of the decisions he made later in life. So in order to understand the man and the music, you've got to understand the man before the music. And that's what we tried to do.
And you were also able to engage Rick's daughter, Ty, who was also one of the executive producers on the film. So I saw her as being the bookends, because you see her on screen first, and then she's a part of, maybe it's considered some outtakes at the very end, but she was very forthcoming throughout the documentary in terms of the relationship, when the relationship developed with her father and also her brother. And talk about Ty's role with the film and some of the things that Ty was able to help you understand as you were doing your research.
Well, she was very supportive and knew that in order to tell a balanced story, we had to go down some dark roads. And she, had the faith and trust that we would create the balance that would at least be fair to the man who's not around to speak for himself. But, her attachment and her blessing opened the doors to other folks who knew him, family members, etc. It opened the door in ways that if we didn't have that blessing, it would have been way more difficult to make the film. So her blessing across the board made a huge difference. As one of the members of the band, Levi, said, he snorted every drug on God's green earth, but at a certain point, you got to stop. And Rick James, apparently, his tolerance and his ability to party outlasted the ambitions of some musicians, and they couldn't keep up and felt like he had changed. And I mean, that's not a very unique story. We've heard that before with other artists and other bands, but some of them made the decision, most of them made the decision that it was time for a change, and that the direction that Rick was going in his personal life was affecting their musical lives. So they, many of them stepped away. Dr. Todd Boyd felt that Super Freak belittled his musical legacy, and that, Rick himself said the song was a bit of a joke, and that outsiders didn't understand that it was a joke, right? And so that's what's interesting and great about Black art and Black music. There's a language that's being spoken, and not everyone's going to understand the nuance or what's fully being communicated. So you can listen to a song and enjoy it and not fully get the total tongue-in-cheek nature of the song. You can just love it and not think of it. But Rick James felt a way about the song himself, and he knew or felt that it was a joke and that it wasn't a serious song. And the fact that he made this pop song as a joke and it wound up being a hit says a lot about his own musical sensibilities and his understanding of what moves the room. And so even a song that was seemingly a joke to him, to he himself, had the ability to cross over in ways that most artists never will experience that crossover. There's an archival producer. His name is Eddie. He's fantastic. It's his job to really search the world for whatever might be out there. And he has relationships with people who have all this footage. Sometimes it's networks, sometimes it's individual collectors. There's a broad range of ways to get footage. Personal photographs. So it's a real mix of personal stuff that's been on major networks, stuff that's independent, and it's a serious job with serious people doing it. So I'm very thankful that we had such a thorough archival team. It makes a huge difference.
I want to recommend that, again, people see this documentary. It is entitled Bitchin', The Sound and Fury of Rick James. It's going to premiere on Showtime on September 3rd. We want to thank Sacha Jenkins for spending some time with us this afternoon, and good luck with this documentary and everything you're going to be doing in the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to more from you all as well.
Hey, it's Liddy time. Welcome, DC, Maryland, Virginia, Baltimore, 757, Wardolph, and all that good stuff. This is the place to get all the trending news of the area. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to What's Going On, DC. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get straight into it. I'm your boy, the Media Prince. First up, congratulations goes to our DMV queens, Taraji P. Henson and Tracy J. That's right, the two ladies have been renewed for their second season of their Facebook Watch talk show, Peace of Mind with Taraji. Take a look.
Good day and a bad day. What does that look like?
A good day is forgetting about the morning and fighting for the afternoon. And the biggest thing I've gained from being in my treatment centers is mindfulness. That's all they practice with mindfulness.
Mm-hmm. You know what I love? That you allowed yourself to go to treatment. Because some people fight that. People think it's not working. It's not a miracle. It takes time. You have to be patient and gentle with yourself. And I applaud you for that. Yeah. I really do.
Now that's DMV royalty right there. Courtesy of DMV Hoods and News, DMV's own athlete Quinn Cook with the message. Now I know y'all done seen the crate challenge, right? Nah? Well, I'm not showing it. Go look it up. But I do want y'all to see some confusion happening right here in the city. Take a look.
What is this about? Horses in front of lax though? What is this about? I'm so confused right now. What is this about?
Okay, I lied. Here goes the crate challenge here in the DC area. Check out some clips. Yes, that is Drew Key's music on the beat. As COVID has turned into many variations, like we got the Delta Plus, this L word one, and so many. Many clubs, restaurants, and bars here in the DC area are getting stricter with their protocol. Take a look at the new vaccination requirements for IMP venues. Southeast owned Balla links up with Snoop Dogg and Moneybagg Yo. I told y'all, Snoop Dogg loves the DMV. BMO's own Take Bang has been making quite the moves, but did you know he was behind the Nicki Minaj track Fractions, which was just named one of the best songs of 2021 by Complex Magazine? Well, okay then, man, clap it up for the king. He's doing major things. Mind you, he just was killing it on BET Next Big Thing. Glizzy Gang with new music.
Okay, let me tell him what the fuck we on. If a nigga can play with TG, you wanna make it on. Think about my body, and F.A. Corleone. Remember I made my first play, it was on the coolest phone.
June Sanders is back with another New Balance drop, coming September 3rd. Take a look. So courtesy of DMV's own The Neighborhood Talk, all my glizzy eaters, get in close, I have more news. Well, a new study shows that eating one glizzy can take 36 minutes off of your life. My stars. Y'all about to eat all these glizzies, huh? Well, imagine each one you eat. Take a look at the new logo for the Washington football team's entertainment team. Whew. Take a look at this new movie called Really Love, starring Kofi Cerebo, and it takes place and was filmed in DC. Take a look now, it's out on Netflix.
Black people are as extraordinary and normal at the same time.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Damn.
So you're an artist?
We all are as far as I'm concerned. I just happen to paint.
I don't have an artistic bone in my body.
I find that hard to believe.
The power of your work comes from your hunger. So don't let this get in your head and cause you to lose that.
What your ass need to do is separate your studio from your living space. That's when you're gonna become the artist you wanna be.
So I made a boo-boo last week. The National Cannabis Festival is actually this weekend, and it all kicks off tonight with an exclusive premiere of Grass is Greener with hip-hop pioneer Fab Freddy, who narrates and directs the epic film. Well, there you have it, folks. We got another week done under our belts. Until next week, we are headed out. For all this and more, head over to wibridgedc.com and read up on everything you missed and catch up on all the Bridge greatness like I tell you every week. Make sure you follow our YouTube, subscribe, and also follow us on social media and hit our hashtags WGODC and WIBridgeTMP style. Until next week, be safe and turn up.
Brody looked me in my eyes and told me smile more. Just gave my lawyer $6K to see my child more. Used to sell my Hot Wheels outside the corner store. Now this shit we sell, I have them at your front door. They telling lies, I ain't surprised, they ain't new to this, I promise. Probably have a base so bag if they can ever pay homage. Smoking gas ain't gotta ask, cause you can smell it on my garment. And my dog just caught a sentence, funny he was chasing karma. On the block with the Prezi, but I never met Obama. Late nights on U Street, having dreams of Colorama. Trying to bounce back, bounce back. Never had them looking around you when you count that. Streets are angels and the demons, we the proof. Cause if the halo drop 2 inches, it's a noose. Brody looked me in my eyes and told me smile more. It's been a while since I had some shit to smile for. Used to sell my Hot Wheels outside the corner store. Now this shit we sell, I have them at your front door. Cuzzo told me I'm the mouthpiece, I less conversation. But mama told me never talk, just be the demonstration. So off the bars, I got scars, don't need your validation. I just wanna see my daughter without complications. Conversation with my lawyer talking stipulations. Kinda hard for me to smile through this situation. Grew up broke around them hustlers, got them contemplating. To make that move from green to white in the streets, that's graduation. Trying to bounce back, bounce back. And I pray your niggas with you when you count that. Streets are angels and the demons, who to blame? Cause he'll let that halo drop the rocket chain. Brody looked me in my eyes and told me smile more. It's been a while since I had some shit to smile for. Used to sell my Hot Wheels outside the corner store. Now this shit we sell, I have them at your front door. Brody looked me in my eyes and told me smile more. It's been a while since I had some shit to smile for. Used to sell my Hot Wheels outside the corner store. Now this shit we sell, I have them at your front door. Brody looked me in my eyes and told me smile more. Just gave my lawyer. Describe my experience being an artist coming up in the DMV as very challenging, because a lot to overcome when I was coming up, and it was very saturated, so that's why it was challenging. And ain't gotta ask, cause you can smell it on my garment. And my dog just caught I mean, one of my favorite moments in the studio would probably have to be being in the studio, smoking, doing a video with Currency. Probably had to be my favorite moment so far. I did a song with him, then I took a trip down to New Orleans to shoot the video, cause it just ended up going to his studio. I was just going to the studio, we supposed to meet there, but we met there, the cars was there, the smoke was there, we just ended up vibing out, just shooting it right there, so just a sweet little moment. But mama told me never talk, just be the demonstration. I have a project out right now called Silver City. It's on all streaming platforms, working on the deluxe, working on a lot of new projects and collab projects in the works, just working, staying real busy. You can find all that, my social media and stuff like that, on my link in my bio. My mixtape is there, Cover Boy. Streets are angels and the demons, who to blame? Cause he'll let that COVABOY. I got the website where all my merch, all the Silver City merch is at silvercityfoil.com. We spell that Silver City, we spell city with an S every time, no C with an S. Brody looked me in my eyes and told me